So I've just finished reading Mastery by Robert Greene, and it's the book that's taken me the least amount of time to finish, simply because of how good it is. If you are not familiar with Robert Greene's works, effectively he goes over a topic and relates it to history. This book is about mastering, effectively, your life's task. So if you're an individual who doesn't really know what you want to do in life, who hears about purpose but doesn't really understand what purpose is, then allow me to distill the information that I have extracted from this book and give it to you so that you can kind of figure things out for yourself and discern things yourself without actually having to read it. So let's go. Firstly, you need to utilize mentors. Effectively, when you're trying to get to know something or trying to get to learn or do something better, it's important for you to learn from people who have done the thing that you're wanting to do. The prime example is you're not going to go set your foot into the gym and just try figure things out for yourself off rip. You're going to go to someone who has expertise in the field, so then you can extract the wisdom and then avoid making the mistakes and avoid going down the pitfalls that they have gone down. This will save you time and get you closer to your objective. Next is choose learning and knowledge over money. Now, this is a massive problem that I can see that so many people have nowadays is, always go for the job that's the highest paying. Go be a doctor, go be a lawyer, go be an engineer, go do computer science. And all this stuff is just fucking boring. And you don't want to do it, and it doesn't seem interesting, but people say, do it because you'll never be out of a job, and you'll always have the money, and this is a pitfall that so many people end up falling into. You end up chasing something just for the money, but then you end up getting to the point where you're older and you don't really give a shit about the profession. This is why midlife crises happen. People end up going to a profession when they're younger, thinking it's going to be great for them, and they're going to be doing it for their entire life, only to get to about the age of 44, 45, and then they realise they hate their job and they want to change. Instead of going into a job and investing so much in something you don't really care about, what you need to do is learn as much as possible when you're young and forego the temptation to earn as much money as you possibly can get whilst you're young. The issue that a lot of people hear is, for example, I live out in Essex, and a lot of people from where I live go out to London to earn money, and obviously London pays a lot more because it's a mega city, right? People end up getting these really good wages from these jobs, but then as a result of it, they cannot leave that job because they become accustomed to the level of income that they're making. As a result, this creates a money trap, and this is where most people cannot change their lifestyles because their ego cannot fathom having to go down to a lower income job because they're so used and so accustomed to the lifestyle that they have adopted. What you need to do is avoid this money trap, and instead learn as much as you possibly can. If you're going to learn, when you learn as much as you possibly can, you end up increasing your scope of reality. And when you increase your scope of reality, you end up being able to make better decisions, and you end up being able to actually put yourself in the position that you need to be in to be able to actually accomplish your life task. Next, go towards pain and resistance. Now, when it comes to doing anything hard that you actually know is worthwhile, there's going to be days that you don't want to be doing it. There's going to be days that's going to require discipline. This is basically, pain is where resistance meets effort. Effort is obviously the work that you have to do, and the resistance is not wanting to do the work. It's, I should be taking a day off, or I shouldn't work too hard, or I shouldn't be doing this, I just need to relax. Resistance is anything that gets you to not do the work. Effort is where you are doing the work, and then as a result, pain manifests as a result of it. What we need to do is constantly go towards that feeling. Perfect example, going up and speaking to a girl that you find attractive. You feel a lot of resistance to doing that, but if you were to go and do it, your life would become better as a result of it, because what you're doing is you're building yourself and you're making yourself a better version of who you're meant to be. The best thing you can do when it comes to building anything is just go towards the pain. Next, we have learn different fields. Now, the reason why learning different fields is such an important aspect of life is because you're seeing it from a multi-dimensional aspect. Let's talk about the theory of relativity, right? Relativity states that different perspectives can see the same thing from, in a different way. And how we can deduce this is the more we learn from different fields, the better of a picture we can get on what we're trying to look at. So a good example of this might be, trying to think off the top of my head, I don't know, like attracting women. If we only want to attract women using a red pill tactic, we're only going to be able to see it through the red pill tactic. But if we incorporate, let's say, different aspects from psychology, what we're now able to do is to get not only the red pill angle, but we're also able to get the psychological angle of what attracts women, and as a result of it, we are more likely to have a better result because we're able to see it in a more truthful manner. So the more angles that we can see our objective through, or the more angles and lenses we can see through, the better we're able to be targeting what it is we want. The next 10,000 hours is the requirement for mastery. Effectively, this is saying things take time. If you want to become a master at anything, simply it's going to take time, it's going to take hours, it's going to take grit. There's going to be days that you don't want to do it, there's going to be days that you want to give up, that you're going to say it's not worth it. But in order to be able to get to the mastery level where you are exceptional at something, it does require a lot of time and determination. Next we have, don't follow what you think is easy or pays well. So this goes back to obviously going in the money trap. People say, oh, you're really good at this, you should do this, or you should do that because it will be good for you. It's really important to not just follow what comes easy or what pays well. And obviously this links back to the previous point where what happens when we do this is we end up getting ourselves stuck into a trap, or we end up getting ourselves into a midlife crisis where we suddenly have to change course, but then as a result of it, we've amassed this massive ship of skills within a niche that we don't really care about, and then, it makes it harder for us to pivot because we've amassed so much in this one area. So it's really important for you to be discerning and not just chase the instant gratification that comes from an easy paycheck. Next, we have take caution when making career choices from the advice of others. Now, naturally, the biggest influence that we're going to have is from our parents, and the issue with solely taking advice from your parents is that you are only getting a perspective through their very narrow lens. For example, if your parents have a scarcity mindset when it comes to money, their entire worldview is going to be based around the notion that money is hard to come by. And the problem with taking advice from just singular people and not getting a massive collective response of what you should do is you end up only navigating life through that very narrow lens. But the thing that we notice is that life isn't just this narrow lens, it's very big, it's very broad. There's rich people out there, there's poor people out there, there's people who are very charismatic, there's people who are very introspective. When you only take advice from a certain amount of people, for example, your parents, right, you're only going to be able to get advice based off of what they've been through. So it's really important for you to not just take advice based off of a small sample size of people. You need to get a massive sample size, use loads of different experiences to draw upon what you're good at, and that will help you discern the right decision for you. Next, we have look to your youth for inspiration. Now, in your past, there were things that you were naturally good at because when you were a child, you were unencumbered by your ego, unencumbered by things that like negative boundaries that society places onto you. And when you look back to those times, you get more of a clear of an understanding of who you are, because when you're at that age, you don't really care as much. You naturally go with the flow. You're in a more of a feminine state where you're constantly learning, you're constantly taking in new information. And the reason why we need to look to the past to be able to understand what it is we should do in the future is because when we look into the past, we get a very clear understanding of our character. When we were younger, we were not stamped down by people as much for certain qualities that we may possess, but then as we get older, we try to conform and we try to round ourselves to fit certain social groups and certain narratives that people may deem to be right, but we don't necessarily agree with. So when we look back to our childhood, we get a more accurate representation of who we are, and as a result of that, we can then make informed decisions about what we should do based on that information that we have collected from what we've done in the past. Next we often become rigid in our way of thinking, and this closes our mind off to the other possibilities which may help us. So a perfect example of this was with me wanting to really post to YouTube. I was under the notion, and obviously become successful online, I was under the notion that I should only be doing this, I should only be posting this, I should completely close myself off to anything else. I remember my mum said to me, I 6 months ago, I purchased a personal training course, and I just haven't really made much progress in it. And my mum keeps saying to me, "You really need you should make progress in this. You know, this is going to be really good for you. This will actually help what you want to do." And I just couldn't see the perspective. This is because I completely closed myself off to anything that didn't fit the narrative of me becoming an online, an online successful sensation, right, and actually helping people online. And the problem and the flaw that this has for you is when you close yourself off to other possibilities, you end up narrowing your perspective. And when you narrow your perspective so much, you end up closing a lot of doors. Because when you narrow what you're looking at and you kind of tunnel vision yourself, you end up disabling your ability to be able to be open to different perspectives. And when you're open to different perspectives, it actually enables you to take alternate routes that get you to the same result that you want, but it just takes you down a different path. When we solely try to focus on this one thing and become so closed off, what we end up doing is restricting our worldview. And when we restrict our worldview, naturally we make worse decisions because we are not drawing it from different sources. So I hope you're starting to see there's a lot of overarching themes within the book that are important for you to draw upon. Next, we have serendipity, which is the occurrence of something random, helps us in gaining new insights. Oftentimes, our best ideas come not from dedicated thinking time. So naturally, you think all the greatest thinkers would acquire their knowledge through literally just sitting down at a desk doing the work, but that's not actually how it works. Serendipity is obviously, the occurrence of something, a random event that's taking place. More often than not, the times where you're going to have these crazy light bulb moments aren't going to be when you're sitting there actually thinking. It's when you're going to do something random. You're going to be taking the dog for a walk. You're going to be going out and doing something. Maybe you're even going to get a meal. It's going to be it's going to be scenarios where you would not expect a random thought to occur, but that is typically when your greatest pivot points occur in your life. It's the moments where serendipity presents itself. And the best way to allow serendipity to enter your life more frequently is to simply be doing more. See, when we do more novel things and we do new things, we open ourselves up to new experiences of the world. And by doing this, we invite more randomness into our lives. And as a result of this randomness, our brain picks up on things that it otherwise not would have normally. This is the issue that the fucking modern self-improvement online bullshit preaches to us, stay in the routine all the time. A routine is great when you know exactly what you're doing, but if you don't know what you want to do with your life, it's actually shit, because what it does is it keeps you in the same place day in, day out, and you end up becoming a hamster on a wheel. Next, open yourself up more so and adopt a feminine style to your work. What this effectively means is masculine is very much routine, go, 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 I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to get this done. And the problem with this is it ends up, this feeds into the last point, it ends up making us so narrow-minded, and when we become so narrow-minded, we don't invite enough randomness into ourselves. By stepping into a natural feminine flow, what we do is we allow ourselves to kind of ease with what's going with us, and it allows for us to take on new perspectives and learn more. It's really important for you to be able to fluctuate between these two polarities, which are masculine and feminine. When we do this, we end up becoming a better whole. Because if you're too much in the masculine, you end up becoming too rigid. And obviously, if you're too much in the feminine, you don't end up getting any work done. What I see a lot of guys do, especially in this online space, is that they don't know what they want to do with their life. And then as a result of it, what they end up doing is thinking that being in the masculine and being really, really fucking focused and really routinized, this is something that's happened to me, is the best thing to do, but then as a result, that actually ends up not helping them. It ends up actually holding them back because they're not able to make new experiences. When you adopt a feminine mindset, and feminine isn't like being a bitch, right? Feminine is just kind of going with the flow, and it's just like whatever will happen. I think it's really important for us as guys to really understand the importance of this. When you kind of had this go with the flow kind of feeling, you do invite newer experiences into your life, and when you invite newer experiences into your life, you have more to draw upon, and naturally the more we have to draw upon, the more decisions that we can make, and the closer we get to to finding our purpose or our life task. Next, we have primary human nature: envy, laziness, flightiness. Often people will do things for their own power, Observe actions over words. Don't assume being nice will get you far. Naivety will cost you. Now, I should have put these as solely different ones, but we're just going to go with it. Effectively, I think the main thing for you to understand is human nature. More often than not, people are going to do things that will help them. Most of the time, people they don't care about helping you unless it helps them. And you need to learn these fundamental natures of these fundamental principles of human nature. If you don't do it, for example, people who are overly optimistic, what they'll do is they'll go into this worldview of thinking everyone wants to be their friend, but then as a result, they end up getting taken advantage of. What you instead need to do is adopt a more realistic perspective on reality and know that everyone has a survivorship bias, which is just obviously your inclination to survive. But when that survivorship bias kicks in, you will trample over other people. You don't care. You just want to be the one to survive. So when we apply this to human nature, we can observe that people will typically do things that benefit them. And then when we understand that, we can then navigate ourselves in a more appropriate manner so that we can effectively integrate ourselves within society and we can actually keep ourselves safe. Because if we are ignorant to the nature of people, then we open ourselves up to be taken advantage of. Next, we have see situations from others' perspectives. Stop filtering through your own lens. So a really interesting point that we've got here is I've had a situation with some people in the past. I'm not going to name names, and as a result of based off the actions that person has done, I now view them through a certain lens, and then as a result of that certain lens, I can now only see them through that perspective, right? And then basically what this says is, more often than not, you're going to be viewing things through your own lens, and you're not going to be looking at from the different relative points. This is, going back to the point of relativity. Within a different scenario within life, you're going to be seeing different things from different perspectives, and obviously relating this to what your purpose is. If you only see things from your perspective, you're missing a large amount of the picture. But what you need to do is view things from the different way that other people are going to be viewing them, because when you view things from other people's perspectives and really you get inside their shoes and you get to understand who they are, you invite open the possibility that you can be wrong. And the reason why this is good is because if you invite the possibility that you can be wrong, it means you can test yourself, and then you can see whether or not, oh yeah, I am actually wrong, and then it means you can learn more. When you only view things through the lens of yourself, you are ignorant. And the problem is that you have this thing called an ego, which tries to prevent you from feeling silly, feeling stupid, and it's going to naturally, and it's going to very cleverly put up walls to keep you safe. And this is why people become so narrow-minded in their way of thinking. It's like when people say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. People become so hardened by their way of thinking that they're not open to anyone else's perspective. And this is incredibly dangerous, because you are only seeing the world through this very, very narrow proportion. And as a result, it's going to make your interactions with people a lot harder. What you instead need to do is get to understand that, hey, this person that I'm speaking to has had their own experience in life. They've had their own traumas and their own successes, and they're saying this stuff, or they're acting in this way based off of what they have gone through. This is basically empathy. It's understanding what another person is about, and it's being able to understand why they do what they do. When you master this, you get really good at not getting pissed off with people, because when you understand that people just act based off of what they've been through, you can completely detach yourself from social scenarios. If someone's acting like a knob, you're going to be like, okay, well, it's just what they've been through, So it's really important for you to be able to really get an understanding of other people. Next, we have draw from all of the disciplines. Now, basically what this means is, so obviously in school we have maths, English, science, geography, history, art, we've got language. Basically, these are all different disciplines, and the more we understand each discipline, the better our worldview becomes. There's a term called a T-shaped person, where you have a long horizon worth of knowledge on all the different disciplines, and then obviously the vertical line. So the horizontal line, long horizons of a lot of different disciplines, but then the vertical line is where you have deep knowledge in one subject. So obviously the deep knowledge in one subject would be whatever you're choosing to master. So let's say psychology, right? You are wanting to become a master at psychology and really get to understand it, and you think you can be a pioneer for it. It's actually really important for you to be able to understand, history, to understand health, to understand language, to understand business, to understand all these different things. Because when you understand all these different things, you're not just looking at things through the lens of psychology, you're looking at them through the lens of all these different things. And when you're able to do this, you're able to see the details of psychology in a much better manner, because you're able to draw upon loads of different things rather than only be able to pick from that one area. Next, we have leaning to your strengths. Naturally, as an individual, there are going to be things that you are better at than others. So for me at least, I've come to the realization that I'm probably not as good as I want to be on camera. Naturally, watching this video, you are never going to be able to know what it's like to speak to me in person, because in person, for example, I get told that I'm very good at being able to interact with people and make people, I'm very good at understanding non-verbal cues, and I'm relatively good at reading people. This isn't like a humble brag or anything, it's just speaking factually, right? On camera, I'm not capable of doing that because I'm currently just speaking to my iPhone. And as a result of this, I'm never going to be able to be as good on camera as I want to be, ever. So then naturally, it's important for me to go and learn and develop my career in the real world rather than just solely focusing on social media, simply because that's where my strength lies. So when it comes to you, there are probably certain things that you are better at than others. It's important for you to hone in on them strengths. Obviously by looking back in your childhood, going back to one of the previous points, if you look back in your childhood, you'll be able to see you'll be able to see the clear and the rawest truth of what you were not good at and what you are good at. Focus on just what you're good at. If you focus on what you're good at and you get really, 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 really excellent at it, you can then just excel. It's pointless trying to bring up bad parts. Obviously, there's some parts where you want to just kind of maintain it, but it's just focus solely on what your strengths are, and then you're naturally going to become more of a master. Next, we have avoid the path that society lays out for you. So typically, it's go to school, go to college, go to university. Once you're out of university, go get a job, work that job until you're blue in the face and you're 65, 70, then you can retire. That is the path that society's laid out for you. People have this rigidity in thinking that they have to go into university, they have to do this, I have to get a degree, I have to get a master's. The problem with this line of thinking is that you're not opening yourself up to, obviously, your own feminine energy. If you're only following what has been laid out for you, you're never going to be able to truly explore who you are, because you're not exploring what you want to do, you're exploring what somebody else tells you to do. And we know that when we follow what someone else tells us to do, we end up having a midlife crisis. Next, we have trust your deepest voice. Now, I don't know if it's something that you've heard of, but I personally have heard of it. You will have a deep inclination in your psyche, and what your psyche is just basically your collective consciousness. So you have your unconscious, your subconscious, and your pre-conscious. These different consciousnesses form your psyche. And, you've got these normal thoughts in your head where it's like, oh, I want to eat a burger, or I want to go out, or I need to have I need to go for a wee, or I want to go do this, or I want to scroll on my phone. Those are the type of voices that you should ignore, but there is a deeper voice within your heart and within your soul that will guide you to be doing certain things. And I know this is woo-wah, and it feels like there's no real accurate or tangible description for it, but you will have certain inclinations in your life to do certain things, and this voice will have a different feeling to that of, I want to go eat that food. It feels like a more of a deeper calling, and what you need to do is not suppress that at all, but open your heart to it, and open your heart to the possibility that your deep psyche may try to communicate with you and get you to move in the direction that you need to move into. Next, we have ignore your ego or grandiosity. Naturally, as humans, we have this inclination to think that we're better than other people. We all have it. You cannot get rid of your ego. You can kind of get rid of some grandiose parts of you, or you can suppress them a little bit, but they're always going to be a part of you. There's always going to be a part of you who thinks, yep, I'm the shit, I'm this. You know how you go for you can go for an instance of feeling fucking awesome, like you're on top of the world, to then going down to parts of you which just make you feel like a piece of shit. You can't really get rid of these parts. When it comes to your ego and your grandiosity, you need to be really careful that you are not making judgments out of these parts of you, because they're not accurate parts of you. When you make a judgment out of ego, what you end up doing is making an ill-informed and emotive decision. When we make decisions, we need to act out of logic and not out of emotions, because logic is the truth, and emotions, well, they fluctuate all throughout the day. You will have varying different emotions all throughout the day. When you operate from ego and feelings of grandiosity, what you end up doing is putting yourself in a position where you will have to pay the consequences in the future because you are acting out of emotion. Next, we have fail often. Now, if you're choosing to live a life where you are not going to fail, what you do is you live a life of not trying. To try is to eventually fail. You have to try something new. For example, I was posting on Instagram and TikTok for a few months. I tried it and I gave up on it because I realised I didn't want to do it. I effectively failed, right? By failing more often, you learn more often. The type of individual who is scared of failure is an ignorant fool. You need to almost lean into the pain of failing and looking a little bit stupid, because the more you fail, the more feedback you get, and the more feedback you get, the less you fail. So you have to initially go through the period of time where you're shit at something to eventually get to the point where you are competent. Next, we have don't always follow the conventional route. This is similar to like don't always do what society lays out for you. There will be certain, let's say you're in a certain niche and there's a certain way of doing things. You don't always have to do things the way that everyone else says to do them. You can always, and you should perhaps, put your own twist on things. And then lastly, mastery takes time and consistent dedication. Simply, if you want something in your life, and if you want to be able to achieve purpose, and you want to be able to have a life that's fulfilling, that you feel like can contribute to something, you have to be patient. You can't expect you can't expect it to take a few months. You have to be willing to put in the work day in, day out, and overcome feelings of doubt and negativity and insecurity in order for you to be able to achieve the status of mastery and become exceptionally good at something. If you're young, time is your biggest asset, but even if you're old, you just have to have patience and be diligent and keep working. I hope you found this video helpful, and I'm going to keep making videos like this. I don't know, who would actually be watching to the end at this point in time, but if you're still watching, I really appreciate it. I hope the wisdom that I've given to you has been helpful, and yeah, bye.